This is the evolution of every Dreamworks villain's defeat. The first on the list is General Mandible, the villain from Ants. In a fit of rage, Mandible charges at Cutter, but Z gets in the way, and the two of them go plummeting into the rising waters. Z is pulled to safety, but the general meets his doom by crashing into an upturned root. Pharaoh Ramesses meets his defeat when, in his relentless pursuit of Moses, he charges into the parted Red Sea. As the waters close, his army is drowned, leaving Ramesses stranded and shattered on the shore. In a moment of despair, he cries out Moses' name, realizing the cost of his stubbornness, as Moses bids him a final sorrowful farewell. Zekalkan's plan fails when he leads Cortes to El Dorado's entrance, only to find it blocked. Cortes, enraged, dismisses Zekalkan as a liar and drags him away, like a Y to be enslaved. His defeat is complete as he spots Tulio and Miguel hiding, but is powerless to act. Mrs. Tweedy's defeat comes when she pursues the escaping chickens, only to be tricked by Ginger into cutting a wire that causes her to fall into the pie machine's pressure tank. Lord Farquaad's grand plan hits a snag at his wedding when Fiona turns into an ogre, making him reject her and claim the throne. In a fit of power tripping, he sentences Shrek to death. But before he can even enjoy his moment, the dragon crashes the party. With impeccable timing, she gobbles Farquaad up, leaving only his crown as a parting gift. Colonel George's defeat in Spirit is a classic tale of being outwitted by horsepower. After a high-stakes chase in the Grand Canyon, Spirit pulls off an incredible leap across the canyon, leaving the colonel and his cavalry in the dust. Impressed and maybe a little humbled, the colonel stops his men from firing, acknowledges Spirit's wild spirit with a nod, and quietly retreats. Sinbad defeats Eris by proving his honesty and bravery. After returning to Syracuse to face execution, Eris appears furious, but ultimately honors their deal. She hands over the Book of Peace, clearing Sinbad's name before vanishing to cause chaos elsewhere. In Shrek 2, the fairy godmother's grand scheme to make Fiona fall for Prince Charming goes up in glittery smoke when Shrek and his ragtag crew crash the party. Desperate to keep her villainous plan intact, she whips out a death ray spell aimed straight at Shrek, but King Harold jumps in, causing the spell to bounce off his armor and backfire on the fairy godmother herself. Instead of throwing another magical tantrum, she poofs into a cloud of bubbles and sparkles. In Shark Tale, Don Edward Leno, the feared shark mob boss, meets his defeat when Oscar traps him in a whale wash machine. During their confrontation, Oscar finally admits he isn't a shark slayer and reveals the truth about Frankie's accidental death. This confession, along with Lenny's heartfelt explanation of why he ran away, makes Leno realize the error of his ways. Filled with remorse, Leno reconciles with his son, Lenny, and agrees to make peace with the reef, marking his defeat not through force, but through acceptance and understanding. In Madagascar, the Fossas face their hilarious defeat in a high-stakes showdown. Just when the scene reaches peak madness, Alex bursts onto the scene, claiming Marty as his kill to put an end to the melee. With a roar that could be heard from space, Alex makes a grand declaration, asserting that Madagascar is now his territory and ordering the Fossas to never return. Victor Quartermain's downfall in Wallace and Gromit happens when he gloats too soon, thinking he's defeated Wallace. Lady Toddington knocks him out with a giant carrot, and Gromit takes the opportunity to dress Victor in a rabbit suit as payback. Mistaken for the were-rabbit, Victor is bitten by his own dog, Philip, and chased away by the angry mob, turning his grand victory into a humiliating defeat. Vincent's grand exit was as dramatic as it was comedic. RJ taunted Vincent, echoing his own mantra about enough never being enough. Infuriated, Vincent lunged at RJ, only to have Hammy, supercharged by an energy drink, freeze time and activate the Depelter Turbo to sting any bear who dared intrude. As time thawed, Vern fished RJ out of Vincent's mouth with a fishing rod, and RJ, ever the showman, waved a cheeky goodbye as he was hurled into Gladys's backyard. The Depelter Turbo's aftermath left Vincent scorched and nearly hairless, while Gladys and Dwayne bore the brunt of its sting. In Flushed Away, the Toad's grand scheme to flush Retropolis down the drain kinda backfires. His plan to unleash a toilet tidal wave during the England versus Germany match is foiled when Roddy makes a triumphant return to the sewers, just in time to help Rita foil his dastardly plan. Using some quick thinking, they trick the toad into getting his foot stuck on a pipe filled with liquid nitrogen. And then, for good measure, his tongue gets tangled in the gears. This causes the pipe to burst, unleashing the liquid nitrogen onto the oncoming wave, freezing it in its tracks and saving Retropolis from a watery doom. As for the toad, he ends up jammed in the gears, while his sidekick, Le Frog, manages to wriggle. In Shrek the Third, Prince Charming's defeat comes during a chaotic stage performance where Shrek hilariously undermines him. Just as he attempts a dramatic murder of Shrek, Fiona and her crew arrive to confront the villains. The prince refuses to relent and pretends to stab Shrek, but the sword is harmlessly wedged between Shrek's arm and side. Shrek then throws him toward Dragon, who topples a stone tower onto him with a swipe of her tail, effectively ending Charming's reign and securing victory for Shrek and his friends. In B-Movie, Leighton Montgomery's defeat comes during the courtroom showdown, when Barry presents a bee smoker as evidence of mistreatment. Leighton dismisses the smoker's threat, but when he accidentally uses it on the bees, it causes panic in the courtroom. This blunder leads to the bees winning their case, compelling the companies to release the bees and return their honey. Leighton, frustrated by the loss and the end of his exploitation, warns of future repercussions before exiting in defeat. Tai Lung's grand finale comes despite his furious attempts to defeat Po. His chi-blocking punches merely tickle the panda, thanks to Po's unorthodox nerve points. After being tossed into a noodle shop by Po's redirected energy, his frustration mounts as he fights more wildly, even biting his own tail in a fit of rage. The snow leopard's attempts to conquer this seemingly bumbling panda only end with him creating a snow leopard-shaped crater when he falls from a great height. In a last-ditch effort, Tai Lung is caught in Po's whooshy finger hold. He tries to discredit the move by claiming Shifu wouldn't have taught it, but is horrified when Po reveals he figured it out himself. Po then performs the move, humorously sending Tai to the spirit realm and ending his villainous reign in spectacular fashion. Makunga's downfall is a masterclass in comedic justice. After Alex and Zuba restore the watering hole, they trick Makunga with Nana's handbag as a token of appreciation, and the real fun begins. When Nana spots her purse with Makunga, she launches into an epic, hilarious rampage. In a dramatic showdown, Galaxar's evil plans go up in smoke. Meanwhile, Galaxar's bid for freedom ends in spectacular failure as his escape pod crashes, and the ship blows up in a blaze of comedic destruction. In How to Train Your Dragon, Hiccup and Toothless face off against the Red Death in a high-stakes aerial battle. As the monstrous dragon closes in, Hiccup instructs Toothless to pivot and shoot a blast directly into the Red Death's mouth, igniting her flammable throat gases. She crashes into the shoreline, exploding upon impact. With the Red Death defeated, the dragons are freed and no longer need to raid Berk. Rumpelstiltskin's quest for power goes belly up when Shrek locks him in a cage for eternity. The humiliation doesn't stop there. During the credits, Fiona unleashes a high note so powerful it blows Fifi to Kingdom Come, leaving Rumpel a mess of frustration. To top off his bad day, the Pied Piper shows up, turning Rumpel's cage into the ultimate dance floor from hell. Forced to jiggle and twist forever, Rumpel's new life sentence includes endless boogie moves. In a twist worthy of a soap opera, Hal Stewart, aka Titan, meets his comeuppance. Despite nearly killing Megamind, Titan's rage is redirected toward Roxanne. Megamind cleverly uses his diffuser gun to strip Titan of his superpowers after briefly dehydrating himself to land near Roxanne. With his powers gone, Titan collapses, and Megamind emerges victorious. Titan is subsequently imprisoned in Megamind's old cell, where he remains unrepentant. Lord Shen meets his end during a final battle with Po on the remains of his shattered flagship. After a brief exchange about letting go of the past, Shen attacks Po in a desperate last attempt at revenge. However, in the heat of battle, Shen accidentally cuts the ropes holding up his own cannon. The weapon crashes down on him, causing a massive explosion that destroys the flagship. Shen accepts his fate as the ship sinks, and afterward, fireworks in Gongmen City form a peacock in the sky, symbolizing his downfall. Jack and Jill's cunning scheme hit a major snag when their greed got the best of them. Just as they tried to snatch the golden goose for themselves, Humpty had a change of heart and Kitty Softpaws quickly intervene. Their devious plans came to a literal dead end when the Great Terror stomped them into oblivion, leaving nothing but a cautionary tale about the dangers of double-crossing in their wake. Chante Dubois' grand scheme hits rock bottom when Alex and his crew manage to escape with the circus animals. In the peak of battle, while Dubois tries to take a bite out of Alex in midair, two dancing dogs on rocket skates zoom in to rescue him, leaving Dubois flailing. Determined to teach Dubois a lesson, Alex locks her in his old lion cage, making her experience life from an animal's perspective. Mort then tranquilizes her with her own dart, leaving her paralyzed and humiliated. Pitch Black's grand finale goes awry when, after being knocked out by Sandy, he wakes up to find everyone having a blast. Desperate to ruin the fun, he targets Jamie but is spooked when Jamie walks through him like he's a ghost in a bad horror movie. Frightened and defeated, Pitch tries to skedaddle back to his lair, but is intercepted by the Guardians. Spotting his nightmares nearby, he wrongly assumes they're there to back him up. Instead, the nightmares, attracted by Pitch's own fear, turn on him. They drag him kicking and screaming back to his lair, leaving the Guardians victorious and Pitch Black with a one-way ticket to defeat. Guy Gagne's grand plan to crush Turbo backfires spectacularly. Just as he's about to stomp on the snail, Turbo zips across the finish line like a blur of glory. Furious, Kim Lee shows up to dish out a beatdown to Gagne. The newspapers have a field day, portraying Gagne as a fallen hero now facing a mountain of IndyCar sanctions. Edwina Grunyon's grand plans hit a snag when Agamemnon, on his way back to his own time, snatches her up, leaving her stuck in the past with him and ensuring she can't exact any revenge on Mr. Peabody. Drago Bloodfist's grand scheme crumbles in a dramatic showdown. After an attempt to kill Hiccup and Toothless with ice encasement, the duo seemingly meet their end. Toothless relentlessly attacks, causing the Alpha to lose control and wreaking havoc among Drago's dragons. As the people and dragons of Berk unite against Drago's forces, Hiccup offers Drago a chance to surrender peacefully. Drago's refusal to back down leads Toothless and his dragon friends to unleash a barrage of fire, which destroys Drago's prosthetic arm, and a final plasma blast from Toothless breaks the Bewilderbeast's left horn. Dave's grand scheme to turn the penguins into monstrous mutants goes hilariously awry. After announcing to the world that he's rescued the penguins, he zaps them with his Medusa laser, making them so hideous that everyone calls in exterminators. In a twist of fate, Private uses the Medusa laser, with himself as the power source, to fix everything. Skipper uses the last cheesy dibble to hit the remote, turning the penguins back to normal, though Private ends up sporting moose antlers as a quirky bonus. Dave's final revenge fantasy sees him transformed into a gigantic kraken, only to discover he's been shrunk and trapped inside a snow globe. Captain Smek's days of bumbling leadership finally hit a dead end when O calls him out. Smeek tries to silence O with his trusty shusher, but Kyle, tired of Smek's nonsense, steps in. With one well-aimed smack, Kyle forces Smek to hand over the shusher and his captaincy to O, but Smek isn't totally out of the picture. In a hilarious twist, the former captain trades his failed leadership for a DJ booth, spinning tunes for the boov. Kai the Collector's grand plan to dominate the spirit realm comes to a messy end, thanks to Poe's quick thinking and a bit of Panda teamwork. After a fierce battle where Kai manages to steal Poe's chi, Poe turns the tables by dumping every ounce of his energy right into Kai. At first, Kai is thrilled, thinking he's finally hit the jackpot. But instead of unlimited power, he gets a one-way ticket to Explosion City. The masters Kai had collected over the years are finally freed, returning to the mortal world. Chef Bergen meets her downfall in a chaotic and hilarious turn of events. In a fitting end, Chef turns on Creek, only for both of them to be devoured by a giant monster, sealing her defeat with a big, monstrous chomp. Francis Boss Baby's grand plan takes a hilarious nosedive when he confronts Tim and Boss Baby, only to end up taking a literal dip in a vat of formula milk. In a comical twist of fate, the once menacing Francis is transformed back into a whiny baby, much to his chagrin. As he furiously vows revenge, Eugene steps in, pops a pacifier in his mouth, and puts him to sleep like a cranky toddler. Eugene then decides to raise baby Francis properly, leaving Tim and Boss Baby victorious and free to save the day. Professor Poopy Pants meets his match in a hilariously messy showdown. After swallowing Captain Underpants with his Turbo Toilet 2000 and capturing George and Harold to turn them into zombies, Poopy Pants is thwarted by the boys' relentless potty humor. Their jokes crash the toilet's computer, causing it to malfunction. With his evil plans in disarray, Poopy Pants is further humiliated when Captain Underpants escapes the toilet and gains superpowers. In a climactic twist, Underpants swoops in, defeats Poopy Pants, and shrinks him down to a comically tiny size. Although Poopy Pants manages a slippery escape, his defeat is marked by an epic fail of villainous proportions and a lot of toilet trouble. Grimmel the Grizzly meets his end in a spectacularly chaotic fashion. As Hiccup gives chase, he jumps off Toothless to confront Grimmel, only to see the villain's dart hit Toothless and send him plummeting into the ocean. In a dramatic aerial tussle, Hiccup knocks Grimmel off the Light Fury and quickly removes the collar. He instructs the Light Fury to save Toothless, while he and Grimmel continue their downward spiral. Grimmel, in a desperate bid to hold on, clings to Hiccup's prosthetic leg, only to discover it's detachable. As the Light Fury swoops in to rescue Hiccup, Grimmel is left floundering in the water. Grimmel's villainous reign ends as he drowns, concluding his threat to dragons with a comic splashdown. Dr. Zara's downfall is a classic case of be careful what you wish for. After trying to run Everest over with a snowmobile, she inadvertently triggers an avalanche by smashing into the mountain. Zara and her goon leader, initially smug about their victory, are left gaping in horror as the mountain starts to collapse. In a hilariously disastrous turn of events, they're caught in the landslide and swept away, ending their villainous plans with a literal bang as they're buried under tons of snow and debris. The spiny Mandrilla's grand exit is nothing short of comically disastrous. After a brief defeat at the hands of the Croods and their allies, the Mandrilla returns for a dramatic revenge. It grabs Eep and starts dragging her down a cliff, thinking it's about to have a snack. However, in a twist of comedic fate, Eep's prosthetic peanut toe comes loose and falls off. With nothing left to hold on to, the Mandrilla takes a nosedive off the cliff, crashing down in a spectacularly clumsy fashion. Hendrik's downfall is both dramatic and hilarious. Lucky lassos him and ties the other end of the rope to Spirit's neck. With a command, Spirit bolts, dragging the flailing Hendrix behind like a rag doll. Dr. Erwin Armstrong's grand plan to turn all the parents into mindless zombies on B-Day goes hilariously awry. On the night of the holiday pageant, where chaos is already afoot, Armstrong's QT Snap app is set to launch. His ninja baby henchmen trap Tim and Ted in the box, which is rapidly filling with water. Talk about a wet and wild timeout. Meanwhile, Tabitha's solo performance turns into a dramatic mess when she notices Tim's absence and runs off crying. Tina reveals her undercover mission and persuades Tabitha to help her shut down the app. As Tim and Ted break free and race to the server room, Armstrong summons his zombie army. But Tina and Tabitha, armed with Mentos and soda, unleash a candy lava volcano, spectacularly wrecking the servers and reversing the zombie transformation. With his plan in ruins and a messy candy-coated server as his backdrop, Armstrong is forced to retreat to his own family, leaving the Templetons to enjoy a merry and drama-free Christmas. In a twist worthy of a bad sitcom, Professor Rupert Marmalade's grand scheme falls apart spectacularly. Snake, who had been undercover, swaps the real meteorite with a lamp and sets up an explosive finale in Marmalade's mansion. As the mansion goes up in smoke and Marmalade's criminal plans unravel, the Golden Dolphin adds insult to injury by crushing the lamp and revealing the stolen Zumpango diamond. Marmalade's desperate attempts to pin the blame on Foxington flop, leaving him exposed as the Crimson Paw and leading to his arrest. His epic fail becomes a silver lining for the bad guys, who are released and turn their lives around as crime fighters. After growing into a giant, big Jack Horner almost achieves his wish to control all magic. However, Perito's distraction and a joint effort from Puss, Kitty, Goldilocks, and Baby Bear lead to the map being taken and destroyed. As the wishing star collapses, Jack desperately tries to salvage it, only to be thwarted when the talking cricket destroys the map with the Phoenix. Jack meets his end in the ensuing explosion, confused about his fate. The Chameleon's defeat in Kung Fu Panda 4 is both epic and hilarious. After a fierce battle, Jen uses Poe's skadoosh move to knock her down. When she tries a sneaky attack, Po shuts it down with his trusty staff and a well-placed Spladoof move again, this time freeing the Kung Fu masters back into the spirit realm. Tai Lung grabs the chameleon and takes her to the spirit realm with him. That's it for today, folks. If you like our content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you on our next adventure.